A small Kansas town is holding a deep, dark secret. A cold case from 26 years ago. A 15-year-old girl's murder is left unsolved. But is it really? Some of my content has mention of extreme violence, sexual assault, and or other triggering content. Discretion is advised.
All right, and we're back. Kansas, huh? Mm-hmm. I know Kansas. I've grown up in Kansas my whole life.
Yeah.
So am I going to know this one?
Well, I've talked about it to you because...
Okay, so am I going to remember that you talked to me about
Probably not. After all the cases that I've talked to you about, probably not. It's one that definitely is burned in my brain, and we'll get to that in a minute. This case takes place in Spring Hill.
That's close to Kansas City?
It is close.
Yeah, I think that's just south of Kansas City.
Yep, it's close. I looked up navigation.
You're like,
from where I stay some of the time, this is 15 minutes.
Okay, so it's real close.
Yeah, it's real close. Let me say my little clip here because this part will kind of let you in on what's going on. So, okay. Back when I was just covering stories on my YouTube channel, someone came to me with this case. I was immediately drawn to it. I spent countless hours and sleepless nights, but I never did the story. I think for a few reasons. One, because I wanted to tell this on a bigger scale. I wanted to do a documentary style, long form story. But the resources that I needed and the time that I needed, to be honest, never came. I never had the time or the funds or... I don't know. The guts
the time
to do it. Yeah.
You can say time twice.
Time twice,
that's
yes.
Ended up being the biggest.
Right. But the biggest reason was the story super affected me. There were times where I felt like I needed to tell it and times when I was like, it's not ready yet. And it was just a gut feeling. Right. I can't explain it. There's stories that I will look up and I'm like, I don't want to do it. I can't do it. But this one I go back and forth on. It is burned in my brain because I listened to a podcast and as much as I could on this story, and there's not a ton because it's a very small town story. But Tawnya, who this is about, could have been any of us. It literally could have been me. She reminds me a lot of me. And so I think that's another reason why I didn't tell it when I did. So now is the right time.
All right.
Now it feels right. And so now I'm here to tell you the story that I never told. This is Tanya's story.
All right.
So does it make a little bit more sense now? Do you kind of remember?
Yeah, I do remember. I remember you talking about going to shoot, some of the area, things like that, mm-hmm. and try to be able to put it into, I think it's important to mention that when we talk about stuff like that, it's not necessarily shoot footage as in go get in the family's face.
Right.
We
exactly.
don't do that kind of stuff, but
no.
The town of Spring Hill or mm-hmm. something so you can see what the town she just described looked like.
Right.
I think, does that sound right? Kind of
yes.
Some of the stuff you're going to go.
Well, it's very interesting because my first ever YouTube video, we went to the location of. It was a Kansas City case.
I still remember that. Yeah.
Went. We took pictures. We talked about different things about the case. So if you ever want to late night search, go back to to my first video. It's a very good one. And I was planning on doing that with this case.
So do you remember, unfortunately I don't remember the name. Do you remember the name on the first case?
I had just heard it the other day. I literally just looked at it the other day.
So I can at least describe the case a little bit because I can remember that much if you guys are interested. So it was in Kansas City, and it was actually not that far away from where we lived at the time. And it was, what happened was this woman went missing, or not really went missing necessarily. Yeah, I guess she was missing for a little bit, but she drove kind of a weird route throughout Kansas City, and she ended up driving down a boat ramp and drowning going down a boat ramp. But a lot of people questioned how she got there and whether or not it was something that, you know, was natural how it happened, or if it was more than coincidence. We can say that.
Right, and I'm going back right now.
But we actually, to what Sarah was saying, we actually went to the boat ramp because it was close to us. We went and looked to see things like, because a lot of the questions people had was like, how do you just drive down a boat ramp? Well, we went there and you can go see the footage on there, but it's dark. Like, there's not a lot of lighting there.
Right.
So, kind of going and seeing that, things like that, it actually tells you quite a bit about the questions people have in terms of like, well, was it well lit? Well, we showed you.
So her name was Tony Anderson.
I had T in my mind.
Yes, I did too.
I was like, wait, was that because of Tawnya or was that because of...
Yes.
Tony Anderson.
That was my first ever video. This is so funny. So my first ever video has 276 views right now. My second video, which I did about aliens, it has 56 views.
Which, so, we're getting down memory lane here, but...
We are.
So originally your channel was going to kind of do a little of both, and I think you still... You're still interested in both, but you kind of wanted to do true crime and a little spooky, a little the unexplainable kind of thing,
right?
And so there was a little of both of that at the beginning.
Yep, and then my very next video was the Carr Brothers, which we may cover again. That one has 3.7K.
Yeah, we may cover again at some point because
it is so good.
It's that case is so hard to hear, but I feel like more people need to hear it.
Yeah. I
don't know how more people aren't aware of it in true crime because it's horrific. Like, right. And if I remember right, I think they were life without parole, but wasn't there like some things being brought up of whether or not they should let them out potentially?
There was a lot of laws changing and a lot of just different stuff going on.
And I think even they were kind of turning on each other a little bit, right? So, I mean, that might be a case to dust off. So go back and look at some of the oldies and just see how far.
Yes.
Why not gas you up, especially to go see how far you've come in terms of making videos, because you've learned so much over the years, editing, like recording, all that stuff that has all just gone into where we are now. Right.
If you like local to Kansas City cases, like if you were around here, go watch, because I did so many.
Yeah, you did a lot of local ones early.
The majority of my first cases are local cases. And also, you can see my different hair choices over the last
She likes to change her hair.
Like, I was looking back at, like, I brought up one, I was like, whoa, I had bright red hair in that photo. So.
Yeah, I don't, my hair doesn't change. It's either short or it's long.
So you can go and check that out if you want to.
If I do change my hair, it'll be memorable.
Yes, it will.
I think I'm going to go blue one of these times. Just bright blue.
There you go. All right, so let's get back to talking about Tawnya. So this was the case that just never got where I wanted it to get. And it feels right to at least tell the story. I would love to go back and make this like a long form, couple hour video. I would love to do that. And maybe I'll get a chance.
Yeah, I was going to say, just because we're doing it now doesn't mean we never get to do that.
Right.
Also, I wanted to bring up, in terms of location, this is really close to, help me with the name, I know you're going to know who I'm talking about. He was on Unsolved Mysteries.
Alonzo Brooks,
thank you. Mm-hmm. This is really close to the location of the Alonzo Brooks case. Mm-hmm. So, just to give you an idea, if you know that case, kind of
It's smaller town Kansas.
Yeah,
so.
Just because we said it's close to Kansas City doesn't mean that it's even Kansas City suburb. There's small towns outside of Kansas City, too.
Yeah. I always say, like, you're always 30 minutes from everywhere you want to be in Kansas City.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, most people's commute to work is 30 minutes. Like,
it's spaced out a lot. Like, when people get here, I don't think they realize that, like, it's not like New York where it takes 20 minutes to get a mile. This is like, it's 20 miles and you go 20 minutes. Like, it's just spread out.
Yeah. All right. So, like I said, and I hinted kind of, is this case is unsolved, but it should be solved. So, this case is very important. It's one of those that it's like, you gotta dust it off the shelf and you gotta solve it now.
Right.
This Kansas town, there's someone here that knows exactly what happened.
Right.
And the more time that's going by, the more people are passing, the more people are forgetting details, and the more these people or person is getting away with what they did.
And if you are watching in the Kansas City area, this is where we always say, call in tips if you have them, because details help, and sometimes it might seem insignificant to you, but might be an important piece.
Right. So this case had a lot of popularity in the Kansas area. And then this podcast, which I got a lot of information from, they are so good. It is Cold Case Chronicles. They did a piece on this, and it was like a 3-parter. They talked to private investigators, the mom, some of the people involved they talked to. And it's one of those things where that kind of starts drumming up a little bit.
Yeah.
And so since then, like, I feel like people are kind of paying a little bit more attention. But that's really the only attention this has gotten. There hasn't been any big podcasters do this story. Right. There has only been Cold Case Chronicles, to my knowledge, that has done this story. There may have been some YouTubers. I try not to look or listen to podcasts, because I don't want to take material.
Yeah, it's an awkward balance.
It is, because I want to know everything. So with this case, I had to listen to the podcast, because that's the only way I was going to get the information.
Right, like if we're going to listen to, like, and she does the research, she listens to the podcast, things like that, but, like, if she were to do a case that Morbid did and listen to Morbid, it'd be hard not to accidentally say some things the same way they did, because a lot of times you agree with them. Exactly.
And so I try not to listen to it, at least, like, in the days that I'm researching it.
Right.
Sometimes I'll listen to it, like, right after, and I'm like, man, I should have included that.
Yeah, but then sometimes you're like, oh, we got a lot of the stuff they got.
Right. Yeah. So.
But yeah, it's definitely, not stealing other people's material, because we don't want to do that.
But there just isn't a lot on this case. But it's a very important one. So, you ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, so December 7th in 1996, 15-year-old Tawnya came into her dad's bedroom and asked if she could go to a sleepover. Tanya's dad gave her time to be home the next day, knowing she would be right on time, because Tawnya always was. When I saw Tanya's picture, it looked a lot like me. Like, she was going through a little bit of a phase. Going through a little bit of an edgier rocker style.
Which she did. I mean, she did.
Yes. Me. I did that.
Yes.
But Tawnya did too.
She went through a goth emo phase.
Don't bring that up.
I'm just saying. I thought that's the one you're talking about. Unless you're talking about a different phase.
No, it is. So Tawnya was a good kid. Like, genuinely good kid that didn't get in trouble. But she was like a normal teenager who was like, oh, I'm going to try to push the boundaries a little bit.
All teenagers do.
Right. A friend said that he only saw her try to smoke a cigarette once, but she wasn't good at it. And I was
know
like,
what that means.
I was like, if that is not me, I don't know what is. Because I wouldn't know how to smoke a cigarette at all. I wouldn't be good at it.
Yeah, I mean,
I've never smoked a cigarette in my life.
Mom,
we don't have to get into that.
Mom, if you're listening, don't plug your ears on this one. But like, I smoked a cigarette one time and I coughed a lot, and so maybe that was it. But like, it hurts your lungs. It's a very very painful feeling. Maybe that was part of it.
So I just kind of see this kid as being like, she's like, I'm edgy, I'm cool, I'm gonna smoke a cigarette, and then being like, oh, like dying, like I would be.
Yeah, I remember I even was like, how do you hold this thing?
Right.
And I'm like I think this is messed up to think of this, but I'm pretty sure there is like an episode of Friends where Chandler was like, how you hold the cigarette.
Yeah.
He was like doing it like this. I'm like, gotta do it like they did in that episode because it is supposed to look cooler.
Right.
It really didn't. Yeah. But that's the kind of things you go through when you do that.
Right. And she was just a teenager. She was 15. So her dad said yes, and she could go to the sleepover. But that was the last time he or anyone saw her alive. Tawnya was born in Olathe, Kansas. Gosh, this is weird saying all these towns.
all these names. I know where they are.
Right. Her mom, Lori, and her dad, Frank, split up when she was about 3. Tawnya had 2 older brothers, and her parents' divorce was messy, and it was hard on all of them. When I say their parents' divorce was messy, there was some stuff going down. Basically, like, from what I heard, that he cheated on her with her best friend and neighbor, and then ended up with that person.
Allegedly.
So it was messy. It was hard on everybody. It was a bad time.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
When they divorced, her mom moved the kids to Arizona. The kids saw their dad and their new stepmom, and then their daughter throughout the years, briefly, but lived with mom in Arizona full time. At age 13, Tawnya decided she wanted to try to move and live with her dad full time back in Kansas. Her dad now lived in Spring Hill, Kansas, just south of Olathe and about 40 minutes from downtown KC. So, Tawnya was a typical teenager trying to find herself. She was always a tomboy, and people said she could outrun all of the boys in her class. She loved the outdoors, fishing and camping, and loved sports. At 15, she was trying out her edgy rock and roll style. She was a great kid, just trying to fit in. Just trying to figure out who she was, like us all. So when Tawnya came in and asked if she could go to that sleepover with her friend Rachel, her dad said yes, but told her to be home by noon. Tawnya was pretty good at coming back on time, so he didn't worry too much. The next day, noon passed, and then 4, and then 6, and there was no sign of Tawnya. So her dad didn't know what else to do but call the police. Now, true crime question of the day. Do we know what police told him?
They said that it hasn't been long enough yet.
Ding, 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 ding.
That's the one I can think of first every time.
Yep. To come back in 24 hours.
And that's also just that whole thing is a parent's worst nightmare.
Oh yeah.
Is like your kid not coming home from a place that they're supposed to come home at that time. When you're a kid, you don't understand that, but when you're a parent, it's like as soon as your kid doesn't come home when the time's supposed to be, it's like Like,
Where are they?
I want to.
Yeah.
I want to start calling people. I want to make sure my kid's safe.
Mm-hmm. So, we all know this whole rigmarole that they do, the come back in a day thing. Some police still do it today, but not very often.
Which this is because it's before the Amber Alert, right? I think 96.
I don't know. It was around the time probably of the Amber Alert. But this policy was something that wasn't really a law. It was just a policy by police because they were like, your kid might be a runaway. We're not going to spend time.
Right, and they, at that point, even if it had been instituted, they probably didn't realize the benefits of it yet because now there's been so many studies of like what you do in the first hours are so important. And like back then, I don't know that they realized how important those first hours were.
Right. So they often had that 24-hour policy. They would tell people, come back and we'll figure it out tomorrow if they don't return home.
Which I would lose my mind. I'd be like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something.
Right.
Like all I've thought is I don't know what I would do, but I would be loud. Like I would be saying it to anybody and everybody.
Right. They figured that the person would just come back and that most runaways return. So that's what they told them, but they were wrong. Frank knew something was really wrong, even when police insisted that Tawnya was a runaway. He knew that it just wasn't like her. Police in the community thought that Tawnya had run away. She had a friend that lived in a close town. She was from Springfield. This person was in Olathe. They were like, did she go there? We don't know.
Springfield's not, Springfield's close-ish.
Right.
Like, it's close enough that you can get there on a day's drive, but it's not, like, part of Kansas City.
There.
Yeah.
Even her friends at school wondered if she ran away to live there. So everyone just kind of waited to see if she would call or come back. But her mom said there was something off with this theory. She didn't take any of her stuff with her. She didn't take her makeup, her clothes.
Which is always a red flag, like
right.
in every case.
Right, her stuff for her hair. I mean, she's a 15-year-old girl, like, in the 90s. You gotta have that crimper, you know?
Well, I was being more like, I don't know, like, the stuff in general. I wasn't even thinking about hair and makeup and stuff. Like, I was thinking about it from my perspective. I'm like, if I didn't have my wallet, I don't know what I would do, or my phone, which 90s, you don't really have a phone.
Extra pair of underwear, you know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, you're spending the night, so yeah.
Right. She didn't take any of her stuff with her, so that was just, like, a huge red flag to her mom. Investigators stood strong in their theory that they stood strong in their theory, and even told her mom to stay in Arizona and just wait because she would come home. Now, this was heartbreaking hearing this because Lori bought Christmas presents for her and the family just waited for her to walk in the door because everyone was saying, your daughter's gonna come back.
It just is heartbreaking because it's like literally you are being told by your entire community that like you're wrong. Mm-hmm. You're wrong and you don't know what's going on with your own kid. We know that your kid just ran away, so you're just wrong. Like
yeah.
your gut feelings that you have are wrong.
Mm-hmm. So Frank, Tanya's dad, tried to go to the local media to get things going and be vocal and try to get police to take her case seriously.
Right.
After the news aired of the disappearance, it became a bigger deal. There was a very interesting break in the case. Tanya's step-uncle, who I think this is her stepmother's brother, as far as I think.
Sounds right.
There's a lot of people in this case, so just hold on with me here. So step-uncle, he called police and told them that Tawnya was in fact a runaway. He stated that Tawnya called him 5 days after she was last seen and said that she didn't run away. When police asked the uncle where Tawnya was and where she called from, he said he didn't want to give out that information because he didn't want to lose her trust and make her stop communicating. So police at the time took this tip seriously and was like, okay, she's a runaway. We're going to stop looking.
That's kind of confusing to know what should really be done there, to be honest, because that sounds legitimate. Like, it sounds like something somebody who was running away would say.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds believable, I guess, is what I'm saying. I would still have probably... I don't know. I'm on the side of, do your due diligence no matter what. So, like, I still would have probably checked, like, phone records and be like, did she call him? Where did she call him from? Like, I would be trying to check out some of that stuff because, if he said that and she never called him and it was never in the... But that kind of stuff requires...
Why is she calling this guy? I don't know if they were close. I don't...
Yeah, I was going to be...
It's just weird.
Families are weird. Sometimes distant family is not as distant as it sounds. But at the same point in time, like, they need warrants and all that stuff to dig further into it. So they probably didn't have enough to go on.
Right. So the family just sat after this and waited for 6 months with no movement in the case.
I lose my mind.
Yep, losing my SHIT.
If you spell it, they're not going to demonetize us.
Right. They can't. YouTube can't spell.
Until the subtitles spell that out.
Right.
The auto subtitles.
Right. So on June 7th, 1997, a farmer was in the middle of tilling his field. The field just so happened to be right behind a graveyard when he spotted something that he was about to run over. When he took a closer look, he realized it was a human skull. He had found the partially decomposed body of a person. They discovered a pair of size 13-14 jeans and a t-shirt at the scene as well. The shirt that this body had on was different than the one she was last seen in. So Tawnya was last seen in a blue shirt that has never been found. Allegedly, the shirt she was found in, and pay close attention to this, it's gonna be weird, but just roll with me. Allegedly, the shirt that she found in was a men's shirt that said, if you don't like my attitude, call 1-800-EAT, SHIT. So, very different from what Tawnya was wearing. And also, that's a really individualized shirt, you'd think.
You'd think...
I mean, it was the 90s.
Well, and also still. I was kind of like the whole, like, edgy rock phase. That seems like that could potentially fit that phase.
So, as far as everybody looking into this, and as far as we know, no one ever knew of anyone having this shirt.
See, that's what I was going to say, too, is, like, I wonder if her parents knew of her ever having that shirt.
She didn't have this shirt. None of her friends or the people that we come to see had that shirt. No one around had that.
Yeah.
So they were like, how did she even get this shirt on?
Yeah, that's not good.
But it's very important to pay attention to that because that could be the key. Mm-hmm. Like, if someone says, like, oh, I remember
seen that unique shirt.
Right,
yeah.
It's a unique shirt. So, just remember, this is still an open case. Remember these small details.
Yeah, and if like I said, little tips help. So, if you've seen that shirt before, and you remember that shirt, I mean, doesn't mean but at the same point in time, you could always say, like, yeah, I remember Daryl wearing that shirt,
Oh, Daryl does sound like he would wear that shirt.
I was trying to think of a name that would sound like...
Right. Like a small town Kansas.
Small town Kansas wearing that kind of shirt, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is Tawnya. This is the body of Tawnya. There's some other little details here. The jeans she was wearing was inside out. The clasp on her bra was broken. They have not said whether she was SA'd or any details on that at all. None of that has been released. They may not have been able to tell because her body was so decomped at the time.
Yeah.
There was no shoes or a jacket with her at the time.
Is it just me, or is it I always go into these cases, like, hoping that, like, they're like, they found a body, and I'm like, don't be her, you know?
Sometimes we get that where it's a roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, I always hope, like, you know, it's like, it wasn't her, and she's still out there. She could be...
Right.
You know, I always call it like Mara Murray. She could be in Canada.
Yeah.
You know?
She was a third of a mile from where she was last seen. Her mother says that they were able to identify her body through dental records. The cause of death in Tanya's case has never been released to this day.
Is that possible? Like, I felt like...
Because it's an open investigation, they can pick and choose what they tell. Unless somebody gets, like, a... What is it? Like, a certain type of freedom of information. Yeah.
Well, and also, like, I don't know, like, a cold case, they're not actively investigating anymore, so I don't know what...
I would say, why not release it at this point? I mean, you're how many years out?
Right.
Like, release a couple details to try to get some things going.
Just stir some stuff up and try to get some information out there. And I mean, police have done this before too, where they've even kind of like misled people. You know, like they've. I'm not saying that's necessarily the greatest strategy, but like they've, you know, given some details that were slightly off, and then seeing if people could, you know, fit the rest of the case, like correct them or whatever, fit the rest of the case.
Right. Even though we don't know the cause of death, this is ruled a homicide. And now that Tawnya was found, that step-uncle was the first on the list to be questioned.
Yeah.
Because she is not a runaway.
Right. And he said she was.
Right. This is when he said, "Oh, I lied. It was my boss's daughter that actually got the call."
So, like, I mean, 6 months for you to say that, though? Like, so I get it. Let's say his story was right. A week, okay. 2 weeks, all right, you probably should be calling in. Longer than that, you should have called, like, you're past due of you should have called in. Even 2 weeks is probably too long because, yeah.
But this is a weird thing. Like, oh, my boss's daughter actually got the call, but I took the fall for it, or I came to the police with it. It just doesn't, none of it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's weird too, because why does he know that his boss's daughter got the call?
Right.
I mean, yeah, it's weird.
So we don't actually know if this daughter actually got this call or not. Like, we really don't know.
Yeah.
We don't even know that it was Tawnya that called. Like, it could have been somebody else.
Or if there was a call.
Right. I think either it was not Tawnya that called. Well, we know it was pretty much not Tawnya that called because she was dead at the time.
We don't.
Or,
Do we know?
So either it wasn't Tawnya that called or it never happened.
Or. Because we don't know, like, that she died that night, right? For sure yet? Because they didn't release the...
So we don't know for sure. But everything in my material alluded to was then.
Did she go to the sleepover in Spring Hill? Like, was that the town?
So...
I don't remember if we said that or not.
Yes. But we're going to get into all of this.
Okay.
Yeah, she was in Spring Hill. We'll say that.
So, like, it lines up, I guess. That it could have happened that night, day, whatever, because she... I see that kind of blows my... I mean, I get that it's a field and everything, so I guess that kind of makes sense, but, like, Spring Hill, like we discussed, is not that big. And if they had just had cadaver dogs out there looking,
we're
they would have...
We're going to get into that, too.
I should stop.
No,
I mean, like...
It's okay.
They should have found her a lot sooner.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And we're going to get to that. So, this call, allegedly, that now they're saying is from her step-uncle's boss's daughter.
Yeah.
This is what it said. She picked up the phone. "Hey, homegirl, what's up? The girl. Tawnya, is that you? Where are you? Tawnya, I'm on a payphone in Overland Park. Girl, why did you run away? Tawnya, because I have problems with she said her stepmother's name, and the way that she treats me. I have seen the news and my dad looks upset. Can you tell my dad I'm okay? Bye. Click. That was the phone call.
There's a lot of weird stuff about that, I feel like.
Very weird. Very weird.
So, for, again, geography, since I know the area and we know the area, Overland Park is not Springfield. It's still Kansas City suburb.
It's not even Olathe.
It's actually closer to Kansas City downtown than Spring Hill is.
Yeah.
And it's further from Springfield. I think it's about the same distance probably, but it might even be a little further from Springfield than Spring Hill is. So I don't know where the idea that she went to, I guess the friends at school are the ones who said that she might have gone and visited a friend in Springfield, but like...
No, Olathe.
Well, they said that, at one point they said Springfield, I thought.
There was never Springfield. It was Olathe, Overland Park, or Spring Hill.
Okay, maybe now I'm gonna have to go back and watch this and be like, I thought she said Springfield at one point.
I'm going to draw a map.
She probably should. I'm confusing y'all.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We got it.
But,
It'll be all right.
So, all right. But yes, Olathe and Overland Park are further away from Spring Hill. It's just not as far away as what I was saying earlier because I thought I heard Springfield. So, my bad. But now get back on track. So it's still, though, I don't know, it's still just, it feels odd. I'm trying to figure out how to put it into words.
Yeah. Well, my next little bit's gonna make you angry. So are you ready for this?
Great.
There was a search party from the Center for Missing and Exploited Children that was supposed to come out and look for Tawnya the week that she went missing. They called off this search because the police got the report of this phone call. So the day that they were supposed to go out and have search teams and search dogs, follow scents, all of this stuff, a week after her disappearance, they called it all off because of this call.
See, I think that's why you have to verify that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's why, and I get that there's steps you have to go through with getting warrants and things like that, but I feel like you got to be able to do something to kind of verify that if you're to that point. Like, and anyways, it's not like that group is like paid, right? Like,
no,
it's a volunteer group, so just let them come out, you know? Let them come out and look.
So she ended up being found 6 months later and a third of a mile from where the last place she was seen.
Okay.
And they did not find her for 6 months.
A third of a mile is not very far.
No, it is not. I could probably walk a third of a mile.
I was gonna say I'm out of shape and I can walk and maybe even run a third of a mile.
Oh All right.
Would be a pretty sight. You don't want to see it.
So, we've got these questions, all right? How did she die? We don't know.
And I'm curious, the last place she was seen, I'm ready for you to get to that part too. I'll let you get there, but I'll let you finish.
Let me let you finish.
I sound nothing like, and it's probably for the best, I sound nothing like Kanye.
So, how did she die? Why? Who? Was she in that field for 6 months? I mean, we assume she was, but there's no hard facts that she was.
Well, at least that have been released.
Right.
Because that's something an autopsy could say, because I've learned this from you after, I think even our last podcast, there's the whole lividity, right? Uh-huh. It's a word I learned that I didn't know before. I probably would have confused that with levity, completely different things. But her body might have been decomposed enough that they couldn't tell the lividity, but we just won't know.
I think we're looking at bones.
right? So, like, there's
Mostly.
no lividity there.
You think 6 months, it's a long time, but also you're in a field in Kansas.
But it depends on the season.
Well, she went missing in winter.
So that's what I mean,
she went missing through...
the cold months.
The cold months.
The freezing.
Then...
Spring. Which it does get hot and rain a lot, and so, like, that's going to mess things up quite a bit.
Right.
I imagine... this is completely off topic, but you've talked about body farms and things like that. I imagine Kansas would... I don't know how there's not a body farm in Kansas, because I feel like it changes... literally every season, you experience the full force of the season. Dude,
me and my girlfriend were driving. It was clear blue skies and just started pouring down rain.
Yeah.
And we're both looked at each other and we're like, where's the rain coming from?
That's Kansas.
That's Kansas. In a nutshell. So, was she there? When? How did she die? All of these questions, right? They had the job now of going back and talking and tracing all of this down 6 months after it happened.
Which is insanely hard.
Yes, insanely hard.
So much worse than if you had just done it the week of.
Right.
Or even the days after.
Yeah. Because this case is still open and active for the Johnson County Sheriff's Department, there's still a lot kept from the public view and stuff we don't know.
And they have to do that because that's how they convict people too.
Right.
But there's a fine line that they have to walk too, because they can release more. Mm-hmm. They can release whatever they want to release. The only reason they might be holding stuff back is because if somebody knows part of the story and nobody else knew it,
right,
then all of a sudden you're going to really believe that tip.
Mm-hmm. But what we do know is that 15-year-old Tawnya needs justice. So
yes.
Let's get into...
and her family.
Yes, for sure. Let's get into some of this stuff because... hold on. Just
right.
Hold on to your nanas. It gets nuts. And there's a lot of people, so follow me here. All right. The night Tawnya went out, she never showed up at Rachel's house. And to be honest, we don't know if there's actually a Rachel or not.
Okay. Well, that answers my question, which I was going to be like, why didn't Rachel tell people that?
Right.
That there might not be a Rachel.
She did not go to where she said she was going to. And there could be a Rachel, and she just said, hey, I'm going to Rachel's house. And didn't. There could not be a Rachel, and she just said, I'm going to Rachel's house. And it was an excuse. These are 15-year-old kids.
Yeah, kids do that.
They lie.
A lot, yeah.
Right.
I'm going to so-and-so's house when really they're going to a party somewhere.
Right, exactly.
Especially in Kansas.
I probably did it a few more times than I'd like to admit. Sorry, Dad.
I was a good kid till I was out of high school.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. Instead, she went out with two friends that she had recently started hanging out with. These two weren't great influences on her. And I said in the beginning that Tawnya was figuring out her place in the world and being a little more edgy. These girls kind of like Tawnya, but they weren't super close with her. So they were like, oh, you're okay. They were also a little more edgy. They were a little older, a little bit more adventurous. And they were all drinking this night.
Which...
kids do.
A lot of people are going to be like, I think that are not from the Midwest are going to be like, wait, there were 15, they were teenagers and they were drinking? Like, that's Kansas.
I think it happens more than you think.
I mean, it probably does, but I feel like the more city you are, the less you probably realize how much that happens. Yeah, teenagers drink, and they drink, I feel like, younger in small towns.
So... now,
not that they should, please don't.
Yes, exactly. Now that we're going back and we're looking 6 months later, we're interviewing children who don't want to be caught illegally drinking.
Yeah.
So they're scared kids. They're not going to tell the whole truth. They're going to say, we were just hanging out.
Which, if you are one of those scared kids, or were one of those scared kids, guess what? It's past
They don't want you.
I'm not a lawyer, but I think it's past your statute of limitations.
Right.
You really could tell them anything from that night and you're fine. So again, call in the tips if you know. Yeah.
I mean, in what I've come to find out in these true crime cases is when there is a murder or an SA or something that is big, they don't care about the little guys. They could care less if you drink. They want to get the person who did it. They want to get the person who did it. They just want to know the facts. Yeah, they might give you, like, please don't do that again. They might scare you a little.
I mean, how can they even do that now? They're over 21 by this point.
No, well, now they're 21. I'm saying, like, if you're interviewed as a kid.
Right. And I was kind of saying, like, now, like, don't worry about, like, if you were those two older edgy girls, like, you have nothing to worry about now. Feel free to come forward with anything because
for sure.
As long as you weren't the one who committed the crime, they don't care if you're drinking underage. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, like, come forward.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, when you're a kid, like, and something happens, please just be honest.
Yeah.
If you get in trouble and you get your phone taken away by your mom, okay, cool. But, like, there's a murder and there was something that happened to a friend. Yeah. Like, it's way more important.
Right.
So, just putting that up.
And I get that it's a scary situation and it's easy to say when someone's like a kid and they're scared. It's hard to it's a hard situation to be in, but like a murder is above everything else. Like, you gotta swallow your pride, and even if you were doing something wrong that wasn't related to it, you gotta give them what you know. Right.
Now, when you research this case, all the names come up.
Oh, all the names of the kids
who was there, everybody who was involved. People who have been cleared from years and years ago, their names come up. So, I will say, I used names a lot in this case. And I did that because, first of all, the 3 people, other than Tawnya, that I used, they're out there anyway. Quick Google search with Tanya's name and they're out there. They've been interviewed by police a million times. So me redacting their names is not going to do anything but just confuse you guys.
That being said, please do not harass those people.
Yes. And also, like, there's never been any charges, never been any persons of interest in this. So these people, we don't know. No persons of interest is crazy. Right. Like, that, it's been almost 30 years. Yeah. It's been, my math is horrible, like 17 or so years, right? I think. Right. So don't harass them. Don't go try to stalk them. I mean, it's over. But at the same time, like, you can quick Google search and find all this. I'm not going to redact it. I think my math is really bad at 27 years. That being said, if you'll know something, just say it. Yeah. Just say it. Say it and get it over with. Anything. But you saw her that day. Even you saw her walk into what she was wearing could be valuable. You saw her walk into a convenience store. You knew it was her. Yeah. Okay. So let's get into it. So the night that Tawnya went missing, she went to hang out with a girl named Sarah. And this girl Tawnya wanted to impress. Sarah was cool. Not me, Sarah. I was never cool. Am never cool. But this Sarah was cool. She was older, and Tawnya wanted to be like her. Sarah was a little more of a rebel. Sarah and Tanya's relationship was a little interesting. So, in interviews with police, Sarah said that she was Tanya's best friend. But there was also tension between them. There were rumors that Tawnya liked Sarah's boyfriend and even kissed him. So, that night, Tawnya went to hang out with Sarah and a girl named Crystal. Sarah and Crystal wanted to go to the bar in town that night and then another friend's house. According to the girls, Tawnya didn't end up going with them to these places. She got dropped off at a boy's house. This boy, his last name and the house that they got dropped off at was the Haney house. Everyone in town knew the Haney house. This was the place that you could go and drink and smoke pot, and Haney's mom didn't care. Just say that.
Okay.
So, she got dropped off at the Haney house. Haney allegedly didn't know that Tawnya was coming over that night. And he was just hanging out with some friends, and she showed up. Well, rumor has it that a boy named Elijah, who is Sarah's boyfriend, was at the Haney house that night. So, do I still got you here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we don't know if Sarah knew Elijah was there or didn't know Elijah was there. If it was a setup, we don't know.
Right.
Tawnya was under the impression that Sarah was coming back to pick her up around midnight. But Sarah said that she might pick her up. She didn't know. When midnight arrived, Sarah didn't show up. So Haney's mom said she would take her home. Basically, like, you gotta get out of my house. Like, I'll take you home if you want.
You're not staying here.
But you're not staying here. However, Tawnya said no, that she would just walk home. She started walking home, and this is the last time she is seen alive. However, this has been debated too. There's rumors that when Tawnya left, Elijah went with her. There are rumors that he didn't go with her.
Elijah was
Sarah's boyfriend.
Okay, so she wasn't related to the Haney lady.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, I know that's a lot. There's a lot of players here. There's a lot of people. Sarah and Elijah, boyfriend, girlfriend. Crystal, a friend. And then Tawnya was our victim. The Haney house is the party house in town. Did that sum it up okay?
Yes, and again,
we're not saying anybody did anything.
I know, but I will say again, the shirt. If anybody knows somebody at that party that had that shirt, tip could help.
Yep. All right. So, unfortunately, in this case, we get a lot of high school drama. This is a lot of teenage stuff. A lot of he said, she said stuff. Sorting it out becomes very difficult, especially this many years later. So, some people have said that Crystal and Sarah were at the Haney house with Tawnya the night she died. Who is lying about this stuff and why, we don't know.
Right.
Okay, so after Tawnya left the Haney house, another friend named Steve told police that Elijah showed up at his house late that night, knocking on his door, and wanted to shower. Wanted to take a shower. He was not sure what time this was. He thought it was around midnight.
That's weird. Let me just say that. It's in general, whatever the reason, that's weird. Like, I was a high school boy and nobody
knocked on your door and wanted to take a shower.
I literally had a kid walk into my kitchen and start eating out of my fridge. But I've never had a high school kid walk in and say, hey, I need to take a shower at like midnight or 1 or around that time. Like, never.
I mean, it's possible that he like didn't want to smell like marijuana.
Okay, but I mean, tell the guy that then. Like,
tell the guy, like, dude, I smoked some pot and I smell, can I take a shower?
Yeah, like, don't just walk into somebody. And like I said, that person that walked into my kitchen just walked in and ate. Like, didn't tell me why. He just did it. And so I get stuff happens, but a shower's weird. Yeah,
there's some questions around this. Like, we don't know if this was a regular occurrence. Like, if this has ever happened before or not. We just don't know.
Yeah.
Some people have theorized that he was cleaning up after something had happened.
I thought, yeah.
But this was around midnight. They said Elijah and Tawnya left
at midnight. Yeah.
So it's a very close timeline.
But also times get messed up,
right?
Especially when people were out there partying. Like you. Going off of times like that, someone can say, I think it was around midnight when really it was 11 o'clock.
Right.
You know?
The only person who really knows time, and I found this so, like, interesting and funny at the same time, is Steve. Because Steve, he was at the Haney house, right? But he had strict curfew to be home at a certain time because he was on probation and had to call his probation officer. So he was like, dude, I know what time I left.
I know what time it was because I couldn't get in trouble.
Right. He's like, I was not about to not call my PO.
Right.
Like, so he kind of knows time. And this was the house that Elijah showed up at. So did Elijah show up at midnight and the other people got the time wrong? We don't know.
It's possible, yeah.
But poor Steve.
Steve's like, man, I was just trying to cover my own.
Yes. Yeah. So speaking of Steve, this is where it gets really interesting. So Tanya's mother, Lori, went to Steve and asked some questions years after the murder. Right. Okay? She secretly recorded this conversation, which is legal in Kansas.
I was going to say, some states are different on the laws of that. I think Kansas is okay with that, but some states you have to specify, like, I'm recording you.
Right.
But, yeah, I think Kansas is different.
And I'm now going to secretly record everything everybody says.
You won't catch me saying anything other than something weird.
Right, me too.
I'll be saying weird stuff, but that's about it.
Yeah. So she secretly recorded this conversation, and you can hear the whole tape on Cold Case Chronicles website. So Steve talks about that night. And Steve says that they were all at the Haney house. Steve says that he liked to walk Tawnya home at night because she usually goes to the park. But he didn't that night because he had the probation. He had a curfew. Mm-hmm. So he had to be home by 9. So he left Elijah's house and said he showed up at midnight with the shower.
Right.
He said then Elijah left. He said that there was teenage drama and bickering in the group, but nothing that ever seemed serious. Like, he seems like... I feel so badly for Steve because I really don't think he did anything at all.
I feel like it was hard for him to do anything. He was literally under probation. It would be kind of... I mean...
And I don't think he was...
Not ruling anybody out, but I mean, under probation is kind of hard to get away with stuff, or harder at least.
I think he was probably the most clear-minded because... Even if he did do drugs and drink, he had to be clear enough to talk to that probation officer.
Yeah.
And he knew he had to be home by 9. He wasn't gonna F things up. He really wasn't. And I think he liked Tawnya.
And then that dude showed up at his house and he's like, great, you drugged me into this.
Right. And I think he really liked Tawnya. Like, I think there was just... He really cared about her more than anybody in the story did. Yeah. And it's horrible because he gets a lot of slack. Because people are like, you were there, what happened?
Well, if he was there and left 3 hours before, though, I mean...
Like, he talks about in the tape, he's like, I usually walked her home. And we went through the park. For some reason, she didn't go that way that night. And he's like, that's weird. She always went the certain way, and she didn't go that way. Right. And it bothered him a lot. I think it bothered him more than he let on. One thing,
and this is just throwing out theories, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't, not even theories, like, just complete wild guesses. But we'll say one thing that was interesting to me was that she was found kind of near a graveyard. Mm-hmm. And what I know a lot of kids do in high school is they do the whole graveyard thing. Like, oh, it's spooky to be out in a graveyard at, midnight, or spooky to go out there and drink at midnight, kind of thing. So, like, I wondered if something like that was going on. Like, maybe some kids went out to a graveyard just to, I don't know, for it to be spooky.
Right. Don't do that, by the way.
Yeah.
Super disrespectful. Yep. But just saying.
I know kids are going to be kids, but that is really, it's pretty disrespectful.
Yeah. So, in the tape still, he said he never wanted Tawnya to date Elijah because he got bad feelings about him.
Okay. He never wanted Tawnya to date Elijah the dude that just shows up in his house and showers.
Right.
Like...
And also, I think he was like, I want to date Tawnya,
yeah.
Weirdo.
That too, but like...
Get off.
I mean, like, that's just weird, though. Like, I never wanted him to... And I'm not saying, you know, he was wrong for this, but, like, it's just weird that they have that relationship, and yet they have the relationship where you just show up at somebody's house and take a shower, too.
Yeah. So, in the tape, he also says he remembers Sarah and Crystal being at the Haney house that night, but he doesn't remember when it was or if they were still there when he left. So this could mean that they came and dropped Tawnya off and were there. It could mean that they were there the whole night. Or
they came back to pick her up.
Yes. He didn't remember that. Like, you're talking 6 months later, and I don't know. Like I said, Steve seemed, in my opinion, like he didn't have anything to do with this. He's always been open and honest with the police. And unfortunately, Steve died of alcoholism. He was basically ran out of town. He has kids, and none of them really have anything to do with the town. I just feel really bad for him.
So that's a thing.
He carried that his whole life. And, people moved away and people did all this stuff, and I feel like he just carried Tanya's death forever.
That is the thing with small towns, too, is they will get fixated on... Because everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
So they will get fixated on, I'm pretty sure he did it. So if you watch... A good example is if you watch Making a Murderer, and you listen to how the locals talk about...
Steve
Avery and the Avery family in general. They're like, we know the Averys.
Right.
Their perception of what happened in that case is way different than the rest of America because everybody in that small town knows the Averys. They say in the documentary, and it's true, that they all know each other. So this Steve guy, like, most likely everybody in the town knew him, and they may have formed an opinion about him whether or not he had anything to do with it.
Right.
Because they've known him. Right? So they're like, well, we think they can have as little to go on as we think Steve did it. Right. And that's enough for it to blow up in a town like that.
So hold on with me because there is a big theory in this case. But first we have lingering questions. Let's get this all sorted out. So, was it a friend of Tanya's that called the boss's daughter pretending to be Tawnya?
I'm still questioning if anybody called the boss's daughter.
Right. But did they do that in order to derail them from looking?
Right. The timing did seem convenient there.
It was very convenient.
Right before a search party.
Yep. A theory was that Tawnya might have been pregnant, which I know a lot of people jumped to, that there was no...
I feel like that people jump to that a lot,
right?
With no basis,
right?
They're just like, yeah, that's totally a reason why somebody would do that. And
yeah, I think people were like, well, she was pregnant by Elijah, and so he got rid of her, they got rid of her, whatever. And I don't think there's any basis to say
there's
that at
no
all.
evidence, yeah.
But people don't think about it. And then we have the theory that it could be a completely random serial killer, stranger.
I kind of wondered that when I was thinking she told the mom she was going to walk home.
Yeah.
Like, if she is walking home by herself, like, that, I feel like opens the door to anybody.
Right.
Could just be any random passerby. So, yeah, that almost, it feels like somebody, like you said, it feels like somebody knows something.
Yeah.
And somebody was there, somebody knew something, somebody saw something, and it could help a lot. Yeah.
So, we've gotten few answers in this case over the years. Every year or so, there's renewed interest, but then it dies down. The biggest interest took place when Cold Case Chronicles decided to deep dive. I will post their Spotify and YouTube link below, so you can deep dive with them. However you see fit. But recently, Lori, Tanya's mom, made a big leap in this case. She hired a private investigator. Now, this investigator, I don't know if he had access to case files, and knows everything. He sure seems like he did. He interviewed everybody. He has went through file after file, more than 100 people he interviewed from that night. So Lori took it upon herself to get this private investigator. His name is Jeff McDonald. Jeff took this case and just dissected it. Like I said, more than 100 people he interviewed, and he has a bombshell of a theory.
Okay.
Jeff states that Tawnya was led to believe that there was a party that night, and there wasn't. That it was a lie, and he believes someone told Tawnya that there was a party. He thinks 2 people were involved in this murder. One he calls the mastermind. This is a friend of Tanya's that he said is a girl.
But he's not naming names.
Right.
Okay.
The other person he calls the heavy, which is a boy that had a crush on Tawnya. He believes a fight over this boy led to a murder plot of Tawnya. On her way home, Tawnya was lured to the graveyard by the 2, and an altercation happened there. After Tawnya was dead, they lifted her body over the chain link fence and left it there to be discovered. Now, this theory has a lot of evidence that matches. The one he calls mastermind was polygraphed by police, but there was deception in the results.
But polygraphs are not admissible in court.
Exactly. The one he called heavy was the last person to be seen with her. Without seeing or knowing any of the physical evidence, these 2 people have some sort of motive and definitely opportunity. This could actually be a lead. Although police have not went forward with any suspects or anything in this case, it remains cold. Maybe one day I will get to cover this in a long-form documentary. But I want it to be solved.
Yeah.
More than anything.
Well, hopefully when you
Hopefully I won't get the chance.
Hopefully when you do the long-form documentary, it's solved.
All right.
It's a...
Solved case.
Yeah.
All I want is Tanya's real murderer to get caught.
Let's back up just one second, though.
Sure.
Okay. So we have to go allegedly, because this is the private investigator's theory. Mm-hmm. Who does it sound like he is saying? Because the heavy, you said, was the last person she was seen with. And we are pretty sure that was Elijah?
Yes.
Okay. And we know that of the 2 girls, it was Sarah and Crystal. Mm-hmm. And Sarah's boyfriend was Elijah.
Yes.
And so... there was supposedly the fight over the boy. Mm-hmm. And so what we think allegedly he's saying is that he thinks it was Sarah and Elijah.
Yes.
But he didn't say those names.
Right.
But he heavily implied, based on what we know, that, okay. I just wanted to clear that up because, that's how I was hearing it, but I wanted to make sure I wasn't off base.
The interesting fact that I heard, I believe, in the podcast, but I had not seen anywhere else, was this meeting, quote unquote, that took place at a laundromat, and it happened a little bit after Tawnya went missing. And it was between these people. It was between Elijah, Crystal, Sarah. I don't believe Steve was there, but it was the key people in this case, that they met up, people saw them meet up, people knew they were talking, but nothing ever came of it.
Yeah.
So my thing is...
Well, at the time, they assumed they were friends, right? At least the 3 girls.
Yes.
The 3 girls, and then one of them was a boyfriend of one of the 3 girls, so people probably didn't think it was weird.
And it could be nothing. What I think is interesting in this case is why Crystal hasn't came forward.
Yeah, she doesn't seem to be...
could not be involved in this at all, but know
Yeah.
what happened.
And she might be protecting her friend.
And she might be scared that she's going to get some sort of charge for knowing about it.
But again,
but
like
they're
you
going to
said,
go easy on her.
Yeah,
Very easy.
they would be going easy on her to get the information about the people who did it. At
this point, it's a cold case. They might go easy on everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It all depends on... So it's very possible. It all depends on how provable the evidence is. Like,
right.
If the people don't think they have... the district... I guess district attorney might be... I don't know. The prosecution, if they don't feel like they have a strong enough case, they're not going to put much of a charge on it because they want it to stick. They want it solved. And so that means, yeah, they probably would get off light unless there's just some damning piece of evidence.
Right. Any other thoughts before I do my outro?
I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
I'm not disappointed in the case. I'm just disappointed that, like, whatever happened to Tawnya, it's always this way, was senseless, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the reason was, if it was high school drama, if it was a passerby, if it was anything like that, no one deserves to die over that.
Right.
And Tanya's family was waiting on her to come home. So I just hate hearing stories like that. I hate hearing that violence, and I just hope for... And it sounds like Tanya's mom is still really invested in this.
Oh, yes.
And I'm sure Tanya's dad is probably too.
Yes.
Just maybe not quite as, like, hiring private investigator. Or maybe he's helping, like, maybe, I don't
I think they really work together on this.
That's what I was going to say. Maybe he's, like, also contributing to hire the private... I don't know. But, like, I'm sure both of them want to know what happened to their daughter. And I don't think a lot of the people involved... Maybe they realize now, because they've been involved with it so long, but I don't think a lot of those people realize how much it hurts to not know what happened.
Right.
For those parents.
And I mean, you think about it, these people could have kids.
Yeah.
You know, and if you think about your kid just not coming home and just wanting to know what had happened.
It's a parent's worst fear. It really is.
Right? They have to know that Tawnya was for 6 months laying in a graveyard.
Yeah.
And then to not know how she died, what her last moments were like, if it was quick, anything. They don't know anything. And for the family to sit there for 6 months and wonder, like, was she a runaway? Yeah.
Like, people are saying she's a runaway. Maybe she was a runaway. So, that's all in the past. There's nothing anybody can do to change that, but there's something people can do now if they know stuff.
Right.
I know I kind of beat that dead horse, but, like, really, this seems like a solvable case. Like, this seems like one person with one small detail could break this whole case open, could kind of lead to some leads for police to chase down, for the private investigator to chase down. It just seems like one little thing could break it.
Yep. So, if you believe you have any information about the night Tawnya went missing, you can call the Johnson County Sheriff's Department and call the TIPS hotline at 816-474-TIPS. You could remain anonymous and possibly close a case that's been waiting for decades.
And you could help a family find closure.
Yes. And I guess we'll see you next time. This is a really depressing ending, and I'm so sorry. But aren't they all?
They are. Well, unfortunately. But,
yep.
Everybody be good to each other.
Yes.
Peace.
Bye. Hi guys, I just wanted to say I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like any of the content for Code 187, please click that subscribe button, that like button, that share button. Help us out, help us grow. You can find us on your favorite podcast platforms. Yeah, check us out on there. Give us some ratings. Tell us what you think. We're also across every social media on Code 187. So we're on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I think that's it. And of course, YouTube. So please, please, please subscribe if you like our content and spread the word. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.